We chose to utilize the library.tamu.edu website where we were able to use the EBSCOhost database as the primary search engine for our research. Through this website, we were able to type into one or multiple search bars a variety of keywords and phrases relating to the telecommunication infrastructure in the United States and China, that in turn produced pages upon pages of scholarly articles and texts. The purpose of this presentation is to address and answer the question of what social economic forces help shape communication infrastructure throughout the last 200 years throughout the United States and China. First, we must understand that communication infrastructure refers to the backbone of the communication system upon which various broadcasting and telecommunication services are operated. This can be built from copper cable, fiber, or wireless technologies utilizing the radio frequency spectrum, such as microwave and satellite. Second, we look at the telecommunication as communication over distance by cable, telegraph, telephone, or broadcasting. Looking at the United States, it's clear to see that the demand for communication grew at the beginning of the 19th century with the advent of the Industrial Revolution. Essentially, the Industrial Revolution accelerated many material processes and increased the need for information. Unfortunately, as the years play out, we can see how politicians play a pivotal role in establishing rules and models of governance for telecommunication systems, especially since governments have always been interested in the security of communications, above all because the key role played by those technologies during wartime and even peacetime surveillance.
In 1836, Samuel Morse independently developed an electric telegraph capable of transmitting over long distances using poor quality wire. Now, the need for exchanging information between long distance was a prime reason for the telegraph's emergence, since the Pony Express was considerably long and a really expensive process, not to mention dangerous with rampant attacks by Native Americans. As a result, telecommunication infrastructure experiences a rapid increase in wireline communication, and together with the railroads, made national economics and national culture possible. Now, in 1876, we get some real problems with Bell, when he allegedly invents the telephone and immediately patents it, effectively ending telephonic innovation as we know it. As a result, competition decreased as well as manufacturing until 1893 when Bell's patent expired. However, in 1877, we get the Bell Telephone Company acquiring Western Electric, which allowed it to become a vertically integrated monopoly. So, here we see that the establishments of patents through government law and regulation and advantageous business practices become the focus for the telephone as a new technology, ultimately hindering the advancement of telecommunication infrastructure by promoting anti-competitive behavior. And we see it play out again with the utility of Marconi's radio throughout the war, when Woodrow Wilson issues a proclamation assuming control of the telephone, telegraph, and radio systems, suspending civilian radio activities, experiments, and technological innovation. Similarly, the increase in defense activity for the telephone occurs after the attack of Pearl Harbor and the launching of the Telstar in 1962. Some least common trends, yet dominant social economic forces that affect communication infrastructure are global anxieties and natural disasters. For example, in 1999 we get the Y2K crisis, in which telecommunication organizations all over the world spent billions of dollars as they tried to make their telecommunication systems and networks ready for the turn of the century. Thus, we see a rapid increase in the production and manufacturing of telecommunication resources as a result of anxiety and panic for the unknown. Additionally, natural disasters like Hurricane Katrina and Hurricane Sandy both proved to be extremely damaging towards telecommunication infrastructure, since the communication capabilities that most public agencies depend on for everyday operation were eroded, and in many places eliminated for days and in some cases weeks. However, there were positive legislative acts which benefited telecommunication infrastructure by preventing anti-competitive behavior, like the Kingsbury Commitment of 1913, the Final Judgment of 1956, and the Modified Final Judgment of 1984, and of course the Telecommunication Act of 96, which had good intentions but ultimately backfired. As far as recent technological innovations go, the introduction of the iPhone in 2007 has completely revolutionized telecommunication infrastructure as a result of its ability to function as both a touchscreen cell phone as well as a cross between a telephone and a computer. As you can imagine, the amount of data that flows at any given time requires an immense increase in resources in order to keep data traffic at a minimum.
The first 100 years of the telephone in China consisted of short cycles of government centralization over the network, followed by resistance and decentralization of control, and then by renewed efforts at centralization. China, after Hong Kong became a British colony following China's defeat in the Opium War of the 1840s, the British deployed submarine cables to link its empire by telegraph. The telegraph linked China to Great Britain. China, which had lost not only Hong Kong but also several other port cities to foreign powers, greeted this technology with mixed interest and fear. The telegraph was first used in China in 1882. 6 years after it was invented. It was operated only by foreigners, especially the Dutch. It was available only in the foreign concession areas of Shanghai. The Chinese government allowed investment and operation of privately owned telecommunication services as long as they were under official government supervision. In 1888, foreigners continued to expand the telegraph network into Chinese territories under foreign control. The Chinese government began to expand their network for an economic and political purpose, particularly as a defense against Japan's growing military power. The establishment of the Ministry of Posts and Telecommunications, also known as MPT, was officially established in 1907. After 4 years of Chinese government demand for control, they eventually purchased a telecommunication cable in China. The MPT significantly began the control and surveillance of the Chinese people. It is worthy to note that MPT and the Ministry of Transportation, the Army, and the Navy all independently funded and developed individual networks, a pattern that would persist in the influence of Communist China. An economic force that impacted China's telecommunication network was the 1944 Sino-Japanese War and Chinese Civil War. Both wars destroyed much of the network. Subscriber memberships fell from 50,000 in 1936 to only 8,000 in 1944. In 1949, the People's Republic of China did not consider communication a high-priority industry to invest and expand. The telecommunication networks were re-established in 1950, but then taken down during the Great Leap Forward introduced by Mao Zedong. There were 3 periods of telecommunication growth in China. The first period was from 1978 to 1984, when the MPT decided to make its first priority to modernize telecommunications so that telecommunications better serve the modernization of the Chinese economy. During this, the MPT united all aspects of the telecommunication infrastructure into one industry. The second period was from 1984 to 1989, where the demand of telecommunication infrastructure increased. As a result of the deepening of the reform and opening process of development of a national economy, the telecommunication was recognized during this period as a strategic pivot of the national economy and signaled the beginning of the high-speed takeoff of telecommunications in China. The third period ranges from 1989 to the present. Telecommunications in China during this time created faster speed and size of telecommunication networks. MPT emphasized research in the beginning of 1989 and gradually created China to be the second biggest telecommunication network in the world by 1997. Unfortunately, China telecommunication networks are continually monitored by the government, and users often experience issues like the Great Firewall, which surveillances users' telephone internet use through QQ, a similar phone service like Skype. Overall, China has developed its telecommunication infrastructure with a heavy emphasis on government and military monitoring and control on those networks.